You got questions that need to be answered, Muslims. You got questions that need to be answered, Muslims. And you're just going to sit there and insult me. I want answers. If you want to integrate in the USA, that's fine. That's cool. But don't act like those Muslims in Europe, whether they go and harass women and they don't want to integrate. They don't want to be part of society. They just want to take over. That's what I have a problem with, bro. That's what I have a problem with, you know? And I know Muslims, they have it in their heart. They don't want to be like that. They don't want to harass women. They don't want to molest women.
Let's listen to David Sirota.
Why is America 30% white guys and 70% of the shootings in the last many decades have been at the hands of white guys? I'm not saying we should racially profile white guys, but I do think it's interesting to note that had 70% of mass shooters been, let's say, Arabs or African American men, I think the conversation right now would be a very different conversation where we'd be having a much less nuanced, a much uglier conversation.
Who doesn't want to believe in having more than one wife. Who doesn't want to believe in having more than one wife. You ain't just gonna take it from me like that. Answer this, Muslims. At what age did Aisha consummate the marriage? What's the hadith say? It says 9 years old. We ain't gonna have that in America. We're gonna have to give the choice to those who are born into a Muslim family, who want to leave that lifestyle, who want to leave the lifestyle of Islam. We're giving them a choice.
A Sharia marriage is valid with the agreement is valid at any age. The consummation should only take place when the woman is physically able to bear it, which is the traditional pre-modern Sharia rule. But the ruler, as the ruler, has the right to restrict procedurally what can be registered as a marriage.
But I had a woman who came to me and she said, we were in Medina, and she just said, you know, I have a really hard time with Aisha's age. You know, I told her, I said, listen, first of all, there's debate about her age, all right? And I said, but the important thing about Aisha, if Aisha was an insignificant person in the history of Islam, then we would certainly have to question what the wisdom was. But the fact that she carried so much of the religion, you know, it's undeniable that Allah chose her to be in that position, whether she was 12 or 16 or 18, there's different narrations, or whether she was 9. That wasn't a problem for Irving Washington, who wrote a biography of the Prophet, which is not very flattering, by the way. But when he got to that section, he just said Arabian women were known to be very precocious. They matured early, so this was not uncommon. It didn't bother him in 19th century America, early 19th century America. But today it's very bothersome. But anyway, so I gave her, the best I could do. So I think about a week later, we were in Medina, because we were in Mecca when she brought up the question to me. She came to me and she had like tears. And I said, well, what's the matter? She said, no, I just wanted to let you know, I feel so at ease. She said, I've been so troubled about this. And she said, the Prophet ﷺ came to me in a dream last night, and he explained to me why he did that. And he said Abu Bakr was honored by becoming his father-in-law, because Abu Bakr's maqam was so high with Allah. And she had that in a dream, but she was totally, her heart was just set at ease. I just thought, subhanAllah, what a gift to be troubled by something, and the Prophet comes to you himself to ease your heart. And that's from ikhlas, which means that it doesn't mean that you can't question things. Our religion has never shied away from questions. But question them with a desire to know the truth, not a desire to challenge the truth. Yeah. Awalam tu'min, don't you believe? That's what Allah asked Ibrahim. Don't you believe? He said, no, I believe. I just still my heart. So he showed him.
Tabari says she was 9 when... Tabari has a very interesting quote. No one ever cites it. Tabari says they signed the marriage, they did the marriage contract when she was 6, but she was young. كانت صغيرة على الجماع. She was too young to have sex. And so they waited, and then they consummated the marriage later. No one ever mentions her age, ever, that I've found, until 1905. The British historian David Margoliouth has a book on the rise of Islam, the Prophet in Islam. And he mentions this, and he says it's an ill-advised union. For how else should we characterize the marriage between a man of 53 and a girl of 9? This is the first I've ever seen that anyone mentions this. Why is that? Why is that until the early 20th century no one talks about this? When they are making stuff up about the Prophet to insult him. And they don't bring this up. Because they were all marrying underage girls too. I mean, you have to understand that pre-modern, in fact, even today, peasant societies, to use the Marxist term, societies where you have the vast majority of people live in small agricultural communities, and agricultural work is the predominant form of livelihood. Marriage is very early, especially for women, generally right after puberty. And as I tell my students... Gandhi got married at 14. Yeah, Gandhi got married very young. Because you have to remember, and I've said this before in other lectures, and I think it's very important, our notions of what you're supposed to do in life are based on our lifestyle. If you don't have high school and college, or whatever, college and university and medical school, and you have to go get a job, if you're just living in the desert and you're tending goats all day, and you're a boy and you go through puberty, and being a boy, male who's gone through puberty, I can tell you, speak for the rest of the men out there, basically 99.9% of your brain at that point is occupied with sex. And I don't know what the percentage is for women, but I assume that women at some point start getting interested in sex too. And you're sitting out there with goats, and you've got nothing to do. You have no hope in your life of ever doing anything except tending goats. Why in God's name would you not get married? It makes no sense. Of course you should. And they're like, oh, you're not emotionally mature. What? What is that emotional mature? What does that mean, emotionally mature? This guy doesn't know what emotionally mature is. He doesn't, people don't think about that. Well, what about, power dynamic in the relationship? What? Power dynamic in the relationship? This is all this is all completely anachronistic concepts we're imposing on the past or on societies that justifiably maybe don't care about this. So the argument, no one mentioned this because it wasn't a concern. A Sharia marriage is valid with the agreement is valid at any age. The consummation should only take place when the woman is physically able to bear it, which is the traditional pre-modern Sharia rule. But the ruler, as the ruler, has the right to restrict procedurally what can be registered as a marriage